Welcome to Mind Yourself, a podcast sharing real life stories from real people, alongside conversations about mental health and emotional well-being. Listener discretion is advised, as this episode may include themes some listeners may find distressing. Wherever you're joining us from, whether you're walking, driving, or taking a quiet moment for yourself, you're very welcome here. Let's get started. So today we welcome Alan to the Four Swans Mind Yourself podcast. Alan, you are a nurse and a fourth year psychotherapy student, and you're going to be talking to us today about recovery and your own particular journey through recovery to who you are now and your psychotherapy journey. So welcome, Alan.
Thank you.
Can we just start by asking you about your early experiences in relation to addiction?
Yeah. Thanks for having me here today. So I don't know where to start really, but so many things I could talk about. I was exposed to alcohol at a very young age. I grew up in RD, an only child. My dad was an alcoholic. So yeah, I was just surrounded by it. Spent a lot of time in the pubs with my dad and was exposed to house parties where there was dregs of bottles of beer, so I would have been drinking them and having sips of pints in the pub. It was just my norm. And, looking back, as we do now, we're doing this, your own personal recovery journey, and looking back a couple of years ago, my youngest son is 11, Finn, and when he was 9, I was looking back at a particular time in my life and realised that was when I was drunk. I can remember being drunk for the first time and looking at Finn, a 9-year-old, beautiful, innocent child, and think I was only that size when I was drunk for the first time, and it was really hard hitting. It was really stark. I do a lot of, we have to do our own personal recoveries, and I do embrace the inner child work. There's a lot of healing and that's very difficult, but that was massive to think that's what I was. That's what the size and the innocence of it, to be drunk in. So I needed drink. I had such crippling anxiety and I'd such low self-worth. Now I couldn't have put those labels on it at the time. Didn't like who I was bullied, would have been called names at school. Ear lingus was one of my kind of bullied names, and I would have been called smelly and different things. It was horrible. It's a lot of societal stuff. I was brought up with my dad would have been kicked out of the house when I was 5, so just me and Mum. But yeah, a lot of kind of even the community I grew up in, I was kind of marginalised and I always thought I was different. I'm wondering why I was different, So everything was difficult. It was survival, and so I drank as soon anytime I could get it. From 11, 12 years of age, I would have been having alcohol, probably from 12 starting to get drunk, and went through those next teen years getting drunk a lot but needing it. Got to a point where the life was so difficult, life became difficult without it. So I know 12, 13, 14, going into secondary school, everything changes. Became a little bit popular, became a little bit, again I got this persona of being a bit of a tough guy, would have gotten a lot of fights, but again it was all survival. It was all because I had such fear. I was always trying to portray this version that I was invincible almost, and drink took away the fear. I needed it. I needed that alcohol. Just gave me a level playing field where I could fit in, where I could survive, where the fear was gone. So you crave more of it. So you take that away, you're back to being just yourself, exposed, vulnerable. So I was invincible when I drank, and then I would have got into a lot of fights. There was a lot of violence, because I was always trying to show the world that I wasn't afraid. I wasn't in my nature, I wasn't a violent person. It was always just a need to this outer persona, So the drink took all that away, and I don't think, looking at it now, I don't think I would have survived my teens without having that crutch of alcohol. I wouldn't have. It was too painful. It was too difficult. So I needed it. And then, as it starts to cause so many problems in your life, you start to get in trouble. So, and again, all the schemas and the self-belief I had about myself, that I was wrong, I was worthless. There was a lot of worthlessness now, I know that today. So you start to believe that, and then you start to behave in a way that society is saying you are this, and then you start to behave in a way that kind of reinforces that. So I started stealing, and I started getting in trouble and getting kicked out of school. It's just a mess. It just becomes an absolute mess, and it gets worse. So I know I was drunk a couple of times going to school, certainly hungover a lot, but getting drunk a lot. 14, 15, I was just, and then starting to go to discos. Like I went to my first nightclub at 15 to the Newmore in Carrickman Cross, and that was, from 15 I was getting wasted, but needing with the level of self-consciousness and paranoia I had, I would need maybe 7 or 8 pints before I could even get on the dance floor or talk to someone, or before the anxiety was gone. So I needed it, and then you need more and more, and it progresses. It gets worse. I went to my first AA meeting in 18, I think. I was well on and well messed up by then. A couple of counselling sessions at that time with Oliver Rayburn. He was the addiction counsellor in RD, great guy. But you go once or twice and you're back in the pub a week later, slagging him off and telling the lads what a load of shite that was. Imagine, I went to AA there, and there were, so it plants a seed. And so for the next 10 years, I was in and out of AA. From 18 to 28 was an absolute, a literal car crash. There were 2 car crashes in that period. But it was messy, and it was ugly, and I got arrested many times. I spent nights in the cells in RD and in Navan, and A&Es was a regular thing. I would hurt people, I would get hurt myself. I remember my wife never saw me drinking, and she picked up my recovery book, the AA big book. She picked it up one day, and there was a photograph of me in it. And it was with a Celtic jersey, and both hands were bandaged, and my face was split open. I had stitches in my eye. That was a common enough thing for me. And she says, "Who is that?" I'm even getting emotional even saying that. It's like a like a different person. Yeah. She couldn't believe that, because she knows me in recovery, and it was like that was just there was someone there, and that lying back in that bed, it was just in so much pain.
Yeah.
So much pain.
And you speak about addiction there as you speak about alcohol as being your coping strategy for managing the way that you were feeling, which, yes, as you described, was very painful. So in those years between 18 and 28, can you describe a little bit about what was going on for you in that part of your life?
Yeah, so to get to 18, needing the crutch of alcohol, I think the worthlessness is fairly embedded at that stage. And I wouldn't have understood that at the time, So you're just in survival mode. And so using alcohol to be at a level where I could function, in and out of jobs. And it was just a crazy period. For me, it was binge drinking, and it was then periods of dry where everything would change. And I was trying to tell everyone how they should be living their life. You need multivitamins, you need to be exercising it. So it was one extreme to another. It became very extreme. The drinking sessions got longer. They got more destructive. I don't think I ever knew what a real or healthy relationship was. I was in kind of messy, destructive relationships a lot. So I would have been drawn to that. I ran a marathon in 1998 without training for it. That'll give you the level of where my head was at. I have one lovely picture of the cheap t-shirt I had with 2 big bloody nipples, 2 big blood stains here, where I knew nothing about it. So I'm sober at the minute, so I'm going to run a marathon. And I ran a marathon in 4.5 hours. Just my head was crazy. So it was just extremes, one extreme to another. And it builds up. The anxiety and the difficulties just build up to a point where you need to release, and I go on a bender, and then I'm back to AA, and I'm off for a while. But even it's the thought. Sometimes it's not even the going on the bender. It's knowing it's coming can be enough sometimes. Knowing, okay, yeah, I'm going to stop going to AA. I'm going to do it right this time. I'm going to just drink normally. You keep telling yourself to be different this time, because look at the mess I ended up in last time. Not going to do that again. So it's going to be different. Going to just have a couple of pints, and then after 2 pints, you hit the fuck it button. It's gone. You're gone. You're just in that zone. Nothing matters, and it's the guilt and the shame, and all of those things that are there. You want to numb them, and that's where the next day drinking comes in. You go out. You're sleeping with the wrong people. You're getting in trouble. You're getting arrested, and you have all that guilt and shame added. So I would never let that sit. I couldn't feel that the next morning. I'm gone to an early house, 7 o'clock the next morning. The weekends, I started taking copious amounts of speed. I was drinking and drugging at the same time. Speed was the drug of choice at the time. So I just kept going, constant, continuous. And then the lads I was with would go to work on a Monday or maybe a Tuesday. I'm drinking on my own in the pub all week. And benders lasted a couple of weeks then, until it got really bad. So when you said to 28, my last drink lasted about 6 months. It was horrendous. And I'd got a dry spell of 13 months, so it just keeps getting worse. Dry spell of 13 months where I was absolutely crazy. The dry drunk syndrome that they refer to it as.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't settle. It was untreated alcoholism. I stopped drinking, went to AA as again for a few weeks. Didn't like it, said that's not for me. So I was, working two jobs and doing attic conversions at home, building walls around the house. I just couldn't settle. And I was 13 months. At the end of that, I again had convinced myself it'll be different this time. 13 months off it. I was going to have a couple of pints, and I really, in my own head, I was convinced it would be different. And that drink lasted 6 months. It was just continuous. I'd work, I got sacked out of my job, but I got labouring work so you can fund the drinking. I used to work as a bouncer in a nightclub as well. So, but it was just continuous, and got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. I was too physically sick. I was physically sick in a pub in RG one Sunday morning. I couldn't get any drink into me. And my only options was, if I can't drink today, I was looking at the lorries going by the window. And that was my only other option, was to go out in front of one of those. So I couldn't face life. It was too dark, too difficult. And eventually I was trying all the different things off different shelves in the pub, and had a glass of wine, and the wine stayed down. I was like, I've got a few more weeks of drinking. And then there was just a sense of calm. It was like, this is just, I'm done here. I can't do this anymore. And my mother was always trying to help, always trying to get me into treatment. And I'd been in the treatment centre at one point and didn't remember. I was kind of brought drunk and left the next day. But I went into treatment, and at the end of it. And
Alan, it sounds like such an incredibly chaotic and self-destructive period in your life.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine how you navigated that. Adolescence is challenging enough for the average young person. At some point, though, as you've described there, you just became so physically sick that you couldn't continue. And you would imagine then that as you enter recovery, that there's hope, there's optimism, that you're going to feel better. But what you described as your rock bottom actually came in the midst of your recovery.
Yeah.
5 years into recovery.
Yeah.
Was probably the most difficult.
Yeah, it was. I would refer to the drinking rock bottom as that day when I wanted to walk out in front of the lorry. I was physically sick, but I got into treatment. I did the 6 weeks. Within the first step of AA is so important, to admit you're completely powerless over alcohol. I was at that point. I was at that point where I was like, I knew I am done here. I can't do this on my own. I need help. So went into treatment and had some moments of enlightenment in there, and I had a moment in a little church. I love a church when it's empty. I went into the church and I was praying, just asking for help, because I didn't know how it would work. It was so bad for so long. It's like, I'll give this a go. There's nothing else to do here. There's no sacked out of my job, and I was just at the bottom of a pit, So I went into a church and I prayed and I asked for help. And as I was praying, there was a beautiful sunshine came in the window of the church, and it warmed me. And I just had a sense of something happened in me. Something just shifted. It was like life saying, okay, we got you. It's going to be okay. It was a lovely moment. And So that was the start of the journey, recovery. And I went to AA because that's what everyone says you do. You go to AA, this is how you get sober. This is how you stay sober. So I did that. And I went for 3, 4, 5 meetings a week. I got involved in the meetings and did that for 4 or 5 years. And I embraced it and it worked and it helped. AA does help, especially it does what it says in the tin. If you want to stop drinking and stay stopped, it will help you to do that. Now, I think for a lot of people, that's as far as it goes. But it certainly helped me. But I got to a point 4 years in where I was really struggling. I'd gone back to college. I'd got my life in order. I eventually met my now wife, Helen, and started on the nursing degree. And everything was going so well. But I was in a lot of pain. And the better it got, the more pain I was in. And I kept going to the meetings because they say, keep going to the meetings, just keep talking about it, you'll be fine. But it wasn't fine. I was such a dark period. I needed more. I didn't realise that. And then I met Simon at an AA meeting in RG. I was sharing my story and not getting what I needed. Nobody could identify what I was sharing in the meetings. And Simon came up to me afterwards and he says, I go to this group therapy in Dublin every Tuesday night, whatever it is, maybe you should give it a go. And he brought me there to meet Pádraig from Sharing Point. And that was definitely saved my life, because I was at a point where I couldn't go on because everyone was telling me how great I was. Look at you, aren't you great? You're back in college, you got your life together. And I felt so low. I just couldn't accept it. I couldn't own it. And the more people would say that to me, the more difficult it would get. So I met Pádraig anyway from Sharing Point, and I started going there, and it was just what I needed. A place to share all of the stuff I had all my life, all the anxiety, all the shame, all the worthlessness that was all there and just covered over. You know, you keep going to meetings doesn't help with that stuff. You know, I needed therapy. I badly needed some therapy and some minding and some professional help. And I'm so thankful to Simon. Simon, unfortunately, died by suicide a year after that, after helping me to get in there to get the help I needed. But that was the darkest day. That was my rock bottom. 4 or 5 years in, I was in such a dark place. It was so difficult, and yeah.
I think that's really interesting to hear you say that, because I think maybe it's a misconception that, you know, the first day is the hardest day for people in recovery, but your experience of that was different. It came years later. So you've now been sober for 22 years, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So what has helped you sustain that over all this time?
Sustaining that, I think you find your tribe. And for those first few years, AA was my tribe. You find people who are on a similar path, similar journey, and you need that community, the collective feel, you know, and it was good, and that helped until it didn't help. Now I kept going to AA for a while after I'd found Sharing Point. That was my new tribe. There was people where we could share at a deeper level and start to get into the real stuff, you know. Now, 22 years in, it's completely different. I've been studying for the last 4 years, just coming to the end of my training as a psychotherapist, and there's a new tribe within that. People who are at where I'm at. And I've met some wonderful people along the way, but you have to let people go sometimes, because they are where they're at and they stay there, and I'm moving on. So I found a new tribe, and we're going forward all the time. But how do I stay sober? I do a lot of work on myself. I really, because I have to, you know. In the last 4 years of college, you really know, I've done personal therapy and group therapy for years, but starting the course, you really dig deep into your own stuff, and I really found out who I am. And
I think you're highlighting something really, really important here, which is that it's not just the addiction. You need to get to the root cause of what's causing the addiction. Again, that piece from Gabor Mate around, don't ask about the addiction, ask what is the pain that's caused the addiction. And you found solace in therapy, in holistic practices, in shadow work.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say I found out early days in group therapy that my main thing was worthlessness. So after that darkest period, couple of years in with Sharing Point, I was asked the question. They used to ask me, who is Alan? And I could never answer that question. I used to get so annoyed and frustrated, and I'd say different things. No, that's what you like, or that's what you do. Who is Alan?
So you were disconnected from your identity.
I hadn't a clue who I was, But then I found out, and when I found out who I was, that was probably the best day of my life in recovery, whatever. I was worthless. I was utterly worthless. That's how I felt about myself. And when we discovered that in the group, everyone was looking shocked. The guy who runs the group, Porrick, and myself were both smiling. It was like a little light bulb went on. This is the start, So all of the stuff I do today, it kind of built up to that. This stuff, the shadow work and all that. About 3.5 years ago, I found out about this guy, Michael Maisie. He runs the CIP project in the UK, and he does these different events and shadow work. And I'd seen
what's the CIP project?
Change is Possible. A great guy, Michael. We're good friends today, and so I went over there, and he did like really cathartic breath work and shadow work. So I faced my own shadow, and I've gone back there a few times, and done process work with them, and it really gets into the.
And can you just explain shadow work for somebody who's listening who doesn't understand?
So shadow work, so the things in our shadow, the things we don't want people to see, the things we hide, the repressive stuff. So for me, like when I did my first shadow work with Michael, it was a 2-year-old version of me, and it's like you're kind of trusting. You come out of your head and kind of trusting whatever will come forward. And during that shadow work, there was a 2-year-old version of me, and it's set up like a scene, like acting nearly. You're in a group of people all doing the same work. So Guy Mark played a 2-year-old version of me, and he was over there, and I had to get to him. I had to mind him, that very little version of me. But they make it hard for you. So Michael set up a wall with people who are all the things from my shadow, like society, school headmaster who used to tell me I was a corner boy, all of these things from your past facing you. So you have people shouting at you, you're worthless, you're a piece of shit, and I have to get through them. So I have to take it, I have to listen to it, take it, then I have to scream at them, and then you have to break through. They'll form a barrier. So for me to get to that 2-year-old me who was over there in the ground saying I'm worthless, I had to get to him. It hard, and it's such powerful work, so and I got to him, and when I got there I just embraced him and loved him and minded him, so it's a process of inner child work, minding myself, because it's old. I'm 51 years of age, and those feelings are old, and they're deep wounds, and I love the Gabor Mate stuff as well, with addiction especially. It's the when you have a start in life that is difficult like that, the dopamine levels are you're nearly always chasing something. You're always chasing that hit where it's meant to be, always chasing that dopamine hit. And I might chase that for the rest of my life. I know it's very hard to fix that, or maybe there isn't a fix, but I need to mind myself. It's always going to be difficult, and I'm okay with that. But I need my tribe, I need my people, and I need to keep minding myself.
I love that. That's what the podcast is called, isn't it? Mind yourself.
Mind yourself, absolutely. Absolutely.
Alan, can I ask, what does accountability look like in recovery, and how do you balance that self-compassion with also taking responsibility?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, accountability is very important for me. It's all those times I was arrested, I deserved to be. I had to, and the fines I had to pay for the damage and the reckless behaviour. It's good to have accountability for that, because it helps us to grow, and helps us to but I'm not sure I'm not sure how to answer that one, Helen. Accountability. Remind me the first part of the.
So the part about self-compassion.
Self-compassion, yes. Self-compassion. So it's like, and still, when you're doing my own therapy work today, you're always trying to be compassionate. It's very easy to slip back into the old ways where you're kicking the shit out of yourself, for all the things you've done, because you have them all there in the background. all the time. And I'm not what I've done. I am who I am today. I'm a good person, but I've done a lot of bad things in my life, and I've had to pay for them. You know, there's things that are gone out of my life that I'll never have again, and relationships that are damaged forever, and I have to accept that they're gone, and just opportunities missed. But it's all finding compassion is so important, and it's an ongoing thing as well. And that's why you need to keep I need to keep minding myself and having people. I can see it in everyone else. I could give compassion to everyone, you know, but owning that for myself is very difficult. So that's why you have your friends who know where you're at and can reflect that back to you. And I have friends who will tell me, you're kicking the shit out of yourself again. And I can't see it. You've been hard on yourself again. I can't see it.
You're very good at practicing compassion for other people, though, aren't you?
Absolutely.
And yourself and your wife Helen established Cree Connections.
We did.
Which has been a fairly critical part, not just of your own healing journey, but the sense of wanting to support other people.
Yes, there is a deep sense for me in helping within my community. There's so much. There are people in pain. There are young people in pain and people who need help. I'm well placed to do that, to give that. I want to give it, you know, and there's such I get so much from that. There's such joy in that, seeing other people get what they need, like with the personal therapy here, you know, when you see people growing and changing and getting what they need. Cree Connections we started 1.5 years ago, and we just want to create a space for people to come and be seen and heard and connect. It's a very, very simple thing. We got the idea, I suppose, and the inspiration from Michael in the UK and his CIP project, and he has come and helped us to set up Cree Connections. So we put on a couple of events last year out in Glebe House, and there were 2 full weekend events where we do some breath work, like cathartic breath work, and lots of little dyads, and just making eye contact with someone and telling people about yourself and embracing a little bit of vulnerability. And it's all invitation. You know, same way I work with clients myself. It's all, you know, you're not telling anyone what to do. You're inviting them to go to a deeper place if they want to, if they're ready to, if it feels right. And some people will step forward and do that heavy work, the shadow work. And you try to create a space that's safe and do the aftercare is very important then as well, because it's very, I suppose that's the biggest part of it, is making sure people are going back into the world knowing to have a set of tools and of people and community. And I think community is key. You know, creating that sense of community where we're helping each other and not leaving someone exposed, raw, vulnerable, and not knowing where to go. It's very important to do it. So that's what Cree Connections is. We had some lovely. We have a sweat lodge out there as well, and now I don't do the sweat lodge. That's Michael. He's qualified to do a sweat lodge, and he does all sorts of different events. He's a Lakota sun dancer.
What is a sweat lodge?
Sweat lodge. So we've done the Lakota sweat lodge. So it's a big tent with loads of tarp over it, and you heat the granite bricks outside. You bring them in, so it's very hot, but it's a ceremonial piece where you can create a space for healing. So there's lots of different interpretations of it. You have a Celtic sweat lodge as well, where you might do some chanting, some drumming inside. You will nearly always see someone have a release, a big release in there, emotional release. So it's you might do 4 rounds. You might go in, do some singing, do some intentions. You could do some. A lot of the time we do intentions for past members of our families. You know, bringing that energy into the sweat lodge as well, so you can bring old grandparents and things like that old energy. Very powerful healing experience.
You mentioned there how people in these situations can feel very exposed and raw and vulnerable. Vulnerability is a big piece in this, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And I can't help but think about that young boy that you were and how exposed and vulnerable that you were in those experiences. If you could go back to him, Alan, if you could go back to that teenage boy, what would you say to him?
I know what I'd say to him, because I've done a lot of inner child work, and it's and I'm still doing it today. Still doing my own personal work. I'd put my arm around him and I'd give him the biggest hug. And I'd say, well done, because you survived it. He survived. It was so hard. Yet he survived. And I'm here today, you know, with a beautiful wife and children and home and family. And like, I don't have to talk about gratitude today. I had a look around the house this morning when the kids went to school, and I felt it. I got that felt sense of gratitude for my life as it is today. So I would say, well done. He's a resilient, tough kid, you know, who came through a very difficult time. And I think it's a gift. You know, the training is so important for psychotherapy and the theories and everything, but I bring myself into the room and my personal experience and dealing with clients. Healer. Yeah, absolutely. You can see someone when someone's in pain sitting in front of you. You can really see them, you know. I think that's a blessing.
Thanks so much, Alan, for sharing that with us. And just so that everybody knows, Alan is one of the psychotherapists who work here at Four Swans. So if you're listening and you're feeling like Alan's story really resonates with you, please get in touch with us. Finally, Alan, we ask everybody the same question. How do you mind yourself?
How do I mind myself? Okay. So I do lots of daily stuff is important to me and routine. I don't always do it, but I do try a good morning routine. I mix up either a 10-minute breathwork session in the morning. I'll try and do 1 or 2 of those a week. I have a cold plunge out the back. I like it nice and cold. Lovely in wintertime when you have to crack the ice before you get into it. That just brings me out of my head, grounds me. Some mornings I'm not in the form for that. I'll go for a run, or like this morning I just had a cold shower. So grounding is very important and starting the day well. And I do other things then, like I go on the Camino every year. So I'm going to, next week I'll book this year's Camino. I'll head off for a week or anything, a week or 2 weeks on my own. Just always a beautiful experience. New things, new places, new people. Never know what you're going to get. And I do the little bits of, you know, workshops like the ones in the UK I was talking about, where I did one last year, a Handbleche. So I like Handbleche, like a 4-day vision quest, no food, no water. That was just a real journey inside for me. Fantastic experience. So I do these things that are a little bit weird and wonderful, and they're good for me. And yeah, so it's finding out what I like, what works. But the daily practice is very important, especially with, Brian Penny was here. I was here listening to Brian Penny here a little while back, and he talked about the recovered addict. And I agree with that. And I believe I have recovered, you know, from all of that stuff. The addiction is important, and the labels and alcoholic and all that served me for a time. But you move on and you deal with your own stuff. And I'll always be affected by that stuff. So a lot of the stuff you deal with the underlying things, very important. Excuse me, but also very importantly are the head stuff, the daily practices, the keeping yourself in good shape, mentally, emotionally, physically as well is very important. So that's how I have to mind myself, Helen. It's not an option. If I don't mind myself, I can end up with difficulty every now and again. You know, things get tough, but I ask for help. For years I couldn't ask for help, and that's one thing I can do today. I had to get a tattooed across my chest, let love in. I'd give it to anyone else, but letting that in, letting someone, being worthy of someone minding me, someone when I'm having a difficult day, ringing a friend and saying, look, I'm feeling a bit sad today, and allowing them to listen to me, to be worthy enough for them to that's the big thing. Yeah.
That's a very important
story,
message.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alan.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure.
That is it for today's episode of Mind Yourself. If something in this conversation has resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it, because these are the conversations that matter. Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the podcast, a quick rating or review really helps us to reach more people. So until next time, mind yourself.